Hello, welcome to Innovation Studios. Michael here, and this video is a continuation of a video that I made last week on this channel, which is about Brightline speed compared to the Acela Express and the regular automobile. Well, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the economics of Brightline to see if it really is expensive as some people have mentioned on like YouTube comments and Google reviews. With that being said, let's dive right into this analysis. So, in this video, I'm only going to be comparing Brightline with the automobile because I'm not too sure about the pricing for the tickets for the Acela Express, and also I think the distance from West Palm Beach to Miami is currently too short to compare the prices of Brightline versus the airlines, like very fairly. Perhaps when Brightline finishes their extension to Orlando, that's probably when I'm probably gonna make a sequel to this video in order to compare Brightline with the airlines. But as of for this video, I'm only going to compare Brightline versus the automobile, more specifically my own commute. So the car that I own is this very nice brown Kia Soul. It's a very good car, but it's actually not the most expensive car that there is out there. In fact, I think it's one of the lower end cars in terms of cost, especially when you compare that the average car that Americans drive is usually trucks and SUVs, which have a higher upstart cost, and also they consume more gas as well. The reason why I want to bring up this information is because to give you a perspective that the cost I'm going to calculate for me to commute to my school of USF is going to be lower than the average cost per mile that Americans have to pay for their own vehicles. So anyways, the very first thing that I'm going to calculate in terms of cost for me to drive this vehicle is gas. And usually I can buy gas here in Ruskin for around $2.50, which is pretty good. And also it helps that my car has a pretty good miles per gallon of 30 in economy mode. So if you take $2.50 and divide it by 30, then you should get that I have to pay roughly 8.6 cents worth of gas for every mile that I drive. And so here's the thing too. People wrongly just assume that gas is the only thing that you have to pay in terms of driving an automobile. Wrong. Your car did not just magically come out of thin air. It had to be bought at one point or another. So the cost I had to pay for this car was around $16,000, and when I got it, it was already driven to 10,000 miles. So ever since then, I've driven this car to 27,338 miles. So if we take the that number and minus it by the 10,000 miles that I got when I first got the car, then that means that I've driven this car for 17,338 miles. So now that we have those two pieces of information together, if we take $16,000 that I paid for the car and divided it by the miles I've driven it, which is 17,238, then you should come out that I have to pay roughly 92 cents for every mile that I drive this car for the upstart cost only. If you include gas as well, then it comes around that I have to pay $1 for every mile that I drive this car when I account for gas and the upstart cost of this car. Yeah, that doesn't sound so cheap anymore, right? So I know some people might be thinking, but wait, the more that you drive the car, the more that you get your value out of it. Sure, that is true. Let's just say that I drove this car for 30,000 miles. So if we take $16,000 that I paid for this car and divided it by 30,000 miles, then it should come to around that I will have to pay 53 cents per mile that I drive this vehicle. But there is one other thing that also increases as well, the more that you drive your vehicle, and that is of course maintenance costs, So of course, you're gonna have to pay for the oil change, get the tires changed, suspensions, and so on and so forth, a whole myriad of things to fix your car. I think that this cost is way too variable, so there's no way that I can precisely calculate it, but I do think that the maintenance cost, let's just assume that the maintenance cost of your vehicle is not as expensive as the upfront cost that it costs for you to pay your car. So with that in mind, I'm going to take around 20 cents off of the $1 figure, and that should come to around 80 cents per mile that I have to drive this vehicle. But the thing is too is that there are also many other costs that I'm not going to calculate into this number because it would make this video way too long, and it's also too unpredictable as well. And I'm going to list what those factors are. The insurance that you have to pay for, like your car. The tolls that you happen to encounter upon when you're driving. Also, there are two other things that you cannot exactly equate into money. Health and time. Here in Florida, we have a whole heck of a lot of crazy drivers here in Florida, and that's very evident when you see like Florida usually ranks it very high in terms of pedestrians, bicyclists, and a lot of car accidents, like deaths and all that kind of stuff. It's not very good because you have to deal with a lot of stress, and which in turn affects your health over time, which is not very good. And speaking of time, there's an ever-increasing traffic problem that occurs in America. And it's been just rising steadily over the last couple of years, and we really need to do something about it. It's very bad. Because if you happen to be one of the 14 million Americans that actually takes over an hour to commute to your work, well, let's do the math for that. You gotta have 1 hour to get to there and 1 hour to come back in the same day. So if we do the math for that, that's roughly around 2, hours per day, 10 hours per week. And then if you times it by 56 weeks, that's around 560 hours that you spend per year sitting in traffic. And of course, if you actually divide that by 24, then the number that you should get is 23 days, which that's almost an entire month that you waste in every year for just automobile traffic alone, which is pretty depressing if you think about it. You could be using that time for work, more productivity, for relaxing, sleeping, and all that kind of stuff. But no, we have to waste it on just sitting in automobile traffic every year. Now, I know that those things are kind of possible if you're talking about in terms of the autonomous vehicles, but the only real autonomous vehicles that I can think of is basically Tesla right now, which is their cars are much more expensive than the Kia Soul, which I just showed you is actually very expensive already. And the thing is too is that it might improve traffic a little bit, but the thing is that you also have to consider is that if a highway is only built to accompany 100 cars per minute, and then you have 500 Tesla autonomous vehicles that want to drive on that highway within that minute, you're still going to get traffic no matter what. So yeah, that's that. But don't get me wrong, guys. I absolutely love, cars. I love my Kia Soul, and I love the fact that you're able to go anywhere with them. And I just want to say that even though a lot of Americans have a car, that does not mean that it is not expensive to drive those. Owning a car, period, is an absolute luxury to have. It's something that you should be grateful for, as I have demonstrated in this video. But at the same time, you also have to get real, and that we have very serious traffic problems that are costing 14 million Americans almost an entire month's worth of time wasted every year in traffic. And we need to do something about that. Now that I'm done with analyzing the economics of driving an automobile here in America, I think it's time that I go on to Brightline next. And so before going on in this video, I highly would recommend that you guys watch my review about Brightline, because it actually shows you how nice this train really is. It is fabulous. I even called it the best transportation experience I've had in America. But for the sake of this video, let's ignore all of that completely. Let's just treat Brightline as just as much of a utilitarian train as possible. And on top of that, we're going to ignore the amazing promo codes that Brightline offers. And we're also, because the ticket prices of Brightline changes throughout the day, depending on rush hour and stuff like that, we're going to pick the most expensive tickets because we're going to have a little bit of fun. So Brightline offers 3 different types of tickets for, or 3 different classes for their train. They are Smart, Smart Plus, and Select. Smart is their lowest price ticket, and that's basically just like passenger class. Smart Plus is their middle tier, where basically the seating is identical to Smart class, but it has the addition of one complimentary drink and 1 complimentary food as well. And then you got Select, which is basically their first class. You get wider seats, and actually you can get as much food and drinks as you want. I'll actually maybe even do a video that explains more in detail about the differences between these three classes in another video. But anyways, so the most expensive prices that you can get for these three tickets. So for a one-way trip between West Palm Beach and Miami, a Smart ticket would cost around $32. For Smart Plus is $38, and Select it is $46. And then you also have to include parking as well. So their parking for like all their parking garages is around $8. So if we add $8 to all this, then it costs roughly around $40 for Smart, $46 for Smart Plus, and for Select it is $54. Now, the length of the entire Brightline system is around 66.29 miles. So for Smart, if we take $40 and divide it by 66.29, then it should come out to roughly around 60 cents per mile for Smart class. For Smart Plus, if we do the same calculations, it should be around 69 cents per mile. And then for Select, it should be around 81 cents per mile for a Select class. And that's actually not too bad compared to the 80 cents per mile that it cost me to drive my Kia Soul. And also, you know, my problem with time? Well, you can actually work and play and sleep and do all that very nice stuff inside of the train. And plus, you have one thing that the cars do not have. You have a very nice restroom inside of it as well, which is freaking awesome. I absolutely enjoy that. So yes, so going back to the question that was, you know, like asked at the very beginning of this video, is Brightline expensive? Absolutely no freaking way. Brightline, you know, like when they first said they were coming up with the prices for their train, they said it was going to be absolutely comparable with the automobile. And it turns out when you actually do the math for that, they are absolutely right. And again, my 80 cents per mile for my Kia Soul is actually lower than the national average to drive an automobile here in America. So yes, I hope this video gave you some insight to actually, you know, like how expensive car driving is actually in America, and how actually not that expensive Brightline really is. And also, speaking of that, there are a few ways that you can save a whole heck of a lot of money when it comes to terms of riding Brightline. And I'm definitely going to make my next video about this subject. So yeah, but anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video that covered about the economics of driving an automobile and Brightline. And also, if you guys haven't seen my video about the speed of Brightline, is it really slow or not? I highly recommend that you guys check that video too. But anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time while I go over the few ways that you can save lots of money when riding Brightline.